and welcome to episode 7 of Retro Recall the PS1 Chronicles, a show where we play and rank every PlayStation game ever created. My name is Jimmy, and as always, I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
So have you ever heard of Legacy of Kain before?
I have not. And I actually wanted to bring this up. Or I guess I should throw the question back to you. Did you ever hear about it prior to this?
Yes, I've heard of the sequel. It's called Soul Reaver.
Okay. But did you ever actually play the game?
I remember it looking really cool whenever I was younger, because it was also on the Dreamcast, and it looks really nice on there. It's also on PS1, so we will play it eventually, but I don't really know anything about it.
Okay. I was going to ask you, going into this, what was your thought of what the game would be based on the name? But I guess you already knew what the style of gameplay was.
Well, that's the thing. The sequel is completely different style of gameplay.
Oh, okay.
It's like a full 3D action game.
I guess the question still stands then. What did you think going into this game of what it looked like before actually playing it?
Well, whenever I pick the games, I like to look at least a little bit at what the gameplay looks like. So I looked at it and I thought maybe this is it kind of reminded me of Diablo.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking too. Just based on the name, I'm like, I don't even have to look at anything about this game. It just sounds like a Diablo-esque game.
It kind of has that exact vibe for sure.
Yes.
Especially when you start the game, the cutscene, the voices, everything.
100%. The layout, the graphical interface. Interestingly enough, it came out before Diablo, so that's a nice little tidbit of information there.
You know, we did play Diablo for the old show, and I would say, as far as the PS1 goes, I liked this game more than Diablo.
Yes, but also you have to take into account that we were confused with Diablo when we played it. We got lost. We didn't really understand what we were supposed to do. Not understanding you can't just play that game in one take. You have to take breaks and actually go back into it. But we learned, and I think I do agree. I do like this a lot better than Diablo. But I will save all that for a little bit later.
Yeah, I mean, have you been doing anything this week? I haven't done shit.
Same. I found that my life is dedicated to editing, and that's about it. It's one of those things, though. I love editing. As you saw with the Destruction Derby video edit I did, it's just taking those things that aren't very interesting, but you find ways to make them interesting. Like going around the tracks, and then I find an exact frame where you're going around the same track on a different court or different car, and then doing that cut so it's the background switches on you all of a sudden and you're on a new track. I don't know. It's fun. I like video editing.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried it before. I've done it for some of the band stuff, but I don't really like doing it, honestly. I've also never done it with a computer that's good. My computers, I had a laptop that was shitty. This one needs a new CPU, so even when I am doing it, it's very slow, constantly rendering stuff. I don't mind doing the audio editing for this podcast, but I find myself, I get to a point where I'm so burnt that I'm I need to come back to this tomorrow.
Yeah, I've also noticed there's sometimes whenever I get the file back from you that there's something that's a little too long of a pause that we do, so I cut that down a little bit more in my file. But I get it. There's even times I have to go back and rewatch the stuff I did just to make sure I didn't get lazy whenever I was editing.
Yeah, once I get to the point where I'm you can start to feel it, you know? You feel yourself forcing it to get done. So that's usually when I try and stop.
Yeah, it also is an interesting thing we'll talk more about, but we've been doing a lot of games where we just run out of footage to use, which is a weird thing to say. And it's not that we run out of footage because we didn't record enough. We run out of footage because I used the entire game. And I still have half of the podcast to cover. How do I utilize the rest of this footage? Because I've used every second I could. So I just got to start repeating clips just because that's what we have to do.
Yeah, I'm going to try. I would like to start playing a little more. Just you get to a point with a game where, same thing I was just talking about with editing or with anything really, where you can feel yourself forcing it and you know that you're done, but you're I need to keep playing. We'll talk about when I hit that point with this game, but I feel almost every game so far, probably besides Crash, just because I've played that so many times, I've hit that point eventually.
Yeah, it all is varying points in it. I think with Tekken, my point was about 10 minutes into the game. I really did not like that game. And my feelings will always be repeated with every single fighting game we do. But yeah, I found myself, I don't know. There's just certain points where is this really all the game has to offer? and then you have to keep going forward regardless of if you like it or not, just because of the capture, which is unfortunate. It's one of those things where we even talked about this on our previous show we did, and there's sometimes you just have to do something in the game just for the sake of capture. Like, it's not the way you would naturally play, but it's like, well, I need to get this footage, so I have to do it. So it kind of like removes yourself from the game a little bit, because you have to think about the post-production side of that as well.
Yeah, I find myself, whenever we're playing games for this, I'll like, especially if I'm going through menus or like watching some sort of scene for the first time, I'll let it play when I wouldn't. Especially whenever, anytime in one of these games I die, I have to let it fully go through at least one time and not just like slam X until I'm back into it.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, and I've gotten so used to it that if there's a cutscene or something, I just sit down the controller and I sit back and watch, and I use that time to usually type notes or something. So I find ways to just work while I'm waiting for that to get through what it is. But yeah, that's all I have going on.
All right, well then let's just jump into this game. Blood Omen Legacy of Kain was released on November 15th, 1996, developed by Silicon Knights and published by Crystal Dynamics. The overarching genre I would call is probably action-adventure, but personally, I would call this a Zelda clone. It straight up reminds me of like A Link to the Past.
Very interesting that you just mentioned those in the beginning and right now, because my notes, the very first thing I have is it's very Diablo-like, and it has Zelda vibes within the dungeons. So that was a very good representation of that.
Well, even like, you know, the main thing is like there's these pillars and you have to go fight all these guys. It reminds me of like getting different things in Zelda.
Yeah. That, and there's two different aspects to it. One where you're like outside and you can go into homes, but then the other where you're actually like in a dungeon-esque thing. And it definitely feels like it ramps up in difficulty, and you got to like dodge arrows and fire things, and the enemies coming towards you at the same time. And it can get chaotic pretty fast, but not in a bad way. But you're also trying to solve puzzles at the same time.
The puzzles are very simple though.
Yes and no. So we were talking earlier, and I told you I was stuck on a puzzle. The puzzle was you're in this one dungeon, and there's 3 skulls up on the wall with red lights, and you got to pull these chains to open a door.
Oh, but isn't it you have to leave the middle one undone?
Yes.
Is that what it is?
But there's nowhere to tell you that that's what it is. So I was trying every combination of everything. I was running through the room, looking at the books. I'm like, maybe the books are giving me a hint of like how the layout should be. And I couldn't figure it out for the longest time.
I'm not going to lie to you. That was the one time I looked it up.
I was determined not to. I'm like, well, with 3 handles, there are only so many possibilities. So I just tried all of them. But yeah, the puzzles were never too much that I found so far.
I just thought maybe I missed something, or like maybe there was a lever somewhere else I should have pulled, or just something. So I walked back through the whole dungeon, couldn't figure anything out. So I'm like, okay. I look at these and I'm like, I don't know, you know?
What I do like though is that they kind of lock you in that room, so you can't leave to go back at all. So it kind of gives you a thing of, okay, I know there's something I need to figure out, and you're not running around aimlessly. They kind of keep you contained in like a nice little box of, there is something here you're missing, so you need to figure it out. So it could be a lot worse than what it is, even though they don't really give you hints to the solution.
Yeah. So before we do get too far into these specifics, the game is top down. You know, it just straight up looks like Zelda.
Yeah.
You have weapons, you have spells. I mean, that's pretty much all you really need to know. I just want to paint the picture of what this game actually looks like when you're playing it before we get into the specific critiques.
Yeah, you have weapons, spells, and objects. So you got to be switching between a lot of those. I did find that at the very beginning of the game, you might disagree on this, but it seemed really muddy, is the best way to put it.
Like the look of it?
Yeah, it was very dark. So it was really hard to like really see what I was doing at first.
Especially when it's dark outside. Like you can't see anything.
But once you get outside, then it's like, okay, the graphics are a lot nicer than I thought they were. Because I was very worried in the very beginning, seeing how the graphics were. And I love the UI in general, how you get a quick glance immediately at everything you have.
Yes, but one of my biggest problems with this game is navigating the menus.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to get into that even more. But what was your biggest complaint with that?
I just found that, like, one, I would constantly hit the wrong button to bring up the spells of the items.
Yes.
So in my footage, you'll see me hit one, and you have to select one to get out of it. You can't just back out of it.
Yes.
Yeah, I would like do that, back out, then go to the right menu, then select the thing I want. But even that aside, like just the regular menu, when you pause and go to your inventory, it's just so slow and there's just so much loading all the time. I don't know. I just dreaded having to deal with it.
Now with the menus you were talking about earlier, just before, are you talking about the quick menus? You would accidentally hit those?
Well, like, you hit R1 to bring up spells, R2 to bring up the objects, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the quick menus.
I would mix that up constantly.
Every time I needed to switch a spell or something, I would have to stop and think about what button I needed to push and inevitably always push the wrong one. I never got it burnt into my brain which one I needed to push.
Yeah, and this game expects you to switch a lot too.
It does. I also like the fact that you can't just have things, you can't have one object and one spell ready to go. You have to choose one or the other. So it's, oh, I need this spell at this moment, so here I go. Oh, I need to switch to an object now, so I need to hurry up and switch that.
How long did you play this game for, by the way?
About 4 hours.
Damn, I played about 4.5. I beat 2 bosses.
Oh, you made it all the way to the second boss.
Well, so you beat the boss, but then you find out you didn't really beat him, and you have to go find somebody else. That's kind of where I was.
Wait, okay, yeah. So I beat the first boss.
First boss is so easy.
It is. And it was kind of nice because the entire time it was kind of the same enemies over and over again in a way. They kind of throw new things at you here and there. But whenever I got into that, I guess, castle, you would call it, and they start loading you up on items and healing items and objects, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. This is going to be a boss fight.
It does that before the second boss too.
It was nice. It was a nice little touch of like, you're getting into a boss fight. I will say the first boss was a little lackluster.
So the second boss is just a combat boss. But I don't know if you got this. There's a spell you get where you create a magical barrier around yourself.
I never got that one, no.
So it creates a barrier around you and no magic can hit you and no melee attacks can hit you. So what you can do is just activate it and just spam attack on him. And then once it wears off, you can just attack him normally until your magic builds back up and just keep doing that. That's how I beat him.
Yeah, so I guess that goes along with the combat. How is your feelings towards the combat?
I like it, but it is janky as hell.
How so?
I feel like it's very hard to be precise in like any way. Enemies are on top of you. You can't really attack where you want to. Even then, like, it's hard to tell what the reach of like an enemy or you is. So it kind of just boils down to either spamming a magic or spamming a spell or just kind of attacking, then walking away for a second.
Yeah, I agree with all that. There was times I swung the sword just because, and they happened to be close enough I could hit them. And I was always shocked at how far my reach was. It just felt like I never got used to how far I could reach with the sword. But along all those points you just brought up, I do like how it is forgiving in the sense of if you're at least facing the character, even if the character's off diagonally, you're going to hit the guy. So it's not like you have to be straight on. I do like that. It's a little forgiving.
I mean, even on that topic, I didn't find this game to be hard at all.
No, not easy. Or not at all. Even in times when it got really chaotic, it still just seemed like, okay, I just need to move out of the way a little bit and I'm good. Like whenever there's constant wizards throwing stuff at you, plus arrows shooting out of the wall, plus a skeleton chasing you, it never seemed too overwhelming.
No, it's like the game is challenging, but it's not unfair. You always have what you need. There's always just anything you could possibly need, any item. You can always find them. And I just always felt like I was perfectly prepared, but I couldn't just like sleepwalk my way through it either. Like you still have to try. It's not like it's easy, but it's not punishing, I guess.
And I guess this segues nicely into, I love the feeding aspect of this game.
Really quick, whenever I first started playing, I didn't look at the manual. So in the first little area, I just killed the 2 girls on the wall. And then I was like playing for like 10, 15 minutes and I couldn't heal because I didn't find anything yet. And you start the game with not full health. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to look at the manual. We always talk about this. So I did. And it was circle to feed. So I'm like, okay, so I just completely restarted the game and just fed on those 2 girls.
Mm-hmm. I did that by accident because I saw in the manual it was like circle was your action button. If it said feed, I missed it. So I went up and I'm like, oh, maybe action means I can rescue these girls. So I hit circle and then he just sucks their blood. I was like, oh my God, what did I just do? And then,
yeah, I know, and they're screaming.
yeah. And then I see my health go up. I'm like, oh, that's actually a good thing. You want to kill these people. And they don't give you an option to save them. It's either A, you can hit them with your sword, or B, you can drink their blood. And that's it. Either way, they die.
Yeah, I mean, I would pretty much feed on almost every person.
Oh.
Unless it was like chaotic and I couldn't. But like anytime I was even remotely, like if I took one hit, I'm like, I'm feeding on the next person.
Yeah.
Just to like top myself back off, you know?
It goes back to how kind of easy this game is. You don't have to worry about getting hit. I found myself hitting an enemy and then just getting them into a daze and then drinking their blood. Going to the next enemy. Oh, I got hit 5 times, but who cares? I'm just going to drink his blood and get refilled anyways. So it's almost like you're always at maximum health.
As the game goes on, though, it does get harder. Like there's these one enemies. They look like jesters or something. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Yep. And they spawn in those other monsters.
That to me was probably the hardest enemy in the game.
Really? Why?
Because you have to hurry up and try and kill him. Otherwise, he'll just keep spawning guys. And he just kept doing this attack that would like push me away.
See, I had an interesting problem with those enemies. And it happened a few times where they would just like kind of walk up on me and then be overlaid on my character. And so I couldn't run away. So I'd run away and then they'd walk on top of me again and I couldn't hit them. And they kept spawning people.
You know what? I was thinking of the wrong enemy. You're right, because that would happen to me too.
Yeah. And there's actually one, it's going to be shown up in my footage. There's one guy in one dungeon where he was pretty much glued to me. Like he overlaid me and every time I moved, he was walking in sync with me. And I could not, for the life of me, get distance away from him to kill him. So I'm like, I'm just going to the next room. I don't care. And it happened a lot where, and it felt like more enemies wanted to be right into your bubble so you couldn't hit them more than they wanted to attack you.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I never felt confident when I was doing the combat, you know? I never felt like I knew for sure I was going to hit something.
Yeah, I can kind of see that.
I got to a point where I was just using spells the whole time.
Oh, that's an interesting take. I rarely was using spells or magic or objects. I didn't really use this at all.
Really? Okay, once I unlocked the one that shoots like a laser straight ahead, you probably have that. It's like energy blast or something.
No, that might be after where I stopped.
Well, it just shoots a little laser beam in front of you. I pretty much used that as much as possible until I ran out.
I used the lightning attack the most if I did use magic.
Lightning attack?
Yeah, it was he shot like a lightning bolt out.
I think that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Then yes, I use that one too all the time.
I thought you were talking about the one that lights up the room for a second.
Oh, no. Aside from that lightning bolt, I never used anything else. For objects, I use that like shuriken thing.
That's what I was gonna say. I use that too.
Any throwable I kind of used from time to time if I needed to, but that's about it. It was nice that the shuriken thing was a homing thing, so you could just toss it and it went to wherever it needed to go, the closest enemy.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much did what I do in every game where I just like save them and then barely ever use them.
It got to the point where I want to say like 40 or 50 shuriken things.
That's crazy. I had less than that. I had maybe like 15 or 20 at the most at some point.
So there's this one part, I don't know if you found like the blood sacrifice area.
I did.
So I found out, what did you use when you went up to it? Or did you sacrifice blood?
I did sacrifice blood.
What was your item that you had? Or what did they give you?
It gave me a bunch of those.
Okay, yeah. So same with me. It gave you like 10 on top of that.
Mm-hmm. Did you just keep doing it?
No. I just did it once, but I just found that the game kept giving me stuff. And when you break open barrels and go into chests, it was just nonstop. Here you go. Here's a new thing or more of the stuff you need. And I was stocked on so much stuff and I never used it. So,
I mean, obviously I used like the healing items a bunch.
See, I rarely even use those. It wasn't until like I was about to be done where I was using them a lot because it was starting to get a little bit more chaotic. So I was healing a bit more, but yeah, that's about it.
Well, the more you go on, like there's rooms where it's like spikes and arrows and enemies, and it's like it's impossible not to take damage. And you're a lot of the time you're just trying to escape, and you're not gonna have time to feed. You know?
Yeah, It's interesting that they do this of how when you are about to feed, that doesn't make you invincible.
No, I've noticed that too.
It's a nice little touch. I like that it does that. So you have to pick and choose when you're going to feed on someone.
I mean, I would pretty much just ignore it and do it anyway.
Yeah, I tried several times. There was one I was trying to feed, but the guy you were talking about who pushes you, he kept moving me out of the way. I'm like, no, I need to get to this guy to get help.
Mhm.
And I just couldn't do it. But I do like how when you die, technically, it just uses one of your healing items.
Yeah.
To bring you back. So it's not like you're actually dying. You're just, okay, here, you used one of your items and now you can keep going. So very nice touch. I never wasted all my healing items to see what happens when you run out. So I don't really know what happens if you get like a game over.
Neither did I. Well, as soon as I saw that happen, like after the first time, I knew that I would never lose.
Yeah, they're very courteous on healing items and save spots, I found.
Yeah, I mean, I only used a save state once, and it was just because when I went into a boss, the combat boss, I was just attacking him over and over again, and nothing was happening. I could have just loaded my game, but I used the save state instead. But that was the only time I used any sort of outside assistance during my entire playthrough.
Yeah, it honestly wasn't needed at all. But I noticed like we went really into this.
I tried to rein it back in, but then we just kept going deeper.
I know. Going back to the very, very beginning, the opening cinematics. What was your thoughts on that?
I thought it was all really cool. And, I didn't really know what was going on. I still, only kind of know.
Yeah, it was very impressive of cinematics, but it kind of reminded me of a Harvester.
Yeah.
If you remember that.
I do.
It was like nice 3D animation in a sense, but you can tell for the time where the technology was. So it wasn't great. But I love how when you're getting into it, it's here's the cinematic. Now you're in the gameplay. And now here's a scripted death scene that you're not supposed to win.
I thought I was like doing something wrong, and then it plays the other cutscene, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they got me on this one. And I thought so too. I was like, wait, was I supposed to kill them? Is this game really that hard that I couldn't even kill the first people I come in contact with?
Well, remember I told you I restarted it because I messed up that thing. The second time I actually killed the first batch just because I knew how to play the game now. But then a bunch more came and killed me immediately.
Okay, yeah, I killed the first guy and then got overran with 2 or 3 people, and that's when I died. But pretty much the whole story is you're this character, I forget his name.
Kain.
Are you Kain? I thought it started with an M.
I'm pretty sure you're still Kain.
Oh, okay. And you're at a bar, you go outside, these guards kill you, and then some guy gives you a second chance at life, but now you're a vampire. That's pretty much the story, I think.
Then you eventually have to go kill these guardians of the pillars.
Yeah, it's kind of more like a revenge story.
Yeah, I mean, I did think the story was pretty much just enough to pull you along. I wasn't invested in it, but I did want to see how it would keep going.
Yeah. I love how there's narration over top of it. It just gave that nice story as you're playing the game to keep you going.
No, I do like the narrator, but I hate Kane's voice whenever it just keeps just talking and talking and talking.
Yeah. I guess the add-in voices from NPCs and from your character is just so much. The people hung up on the walls, when they just keep for nonstop, they're going and going please help me, sir. Please help me, sir. Please help me, sir. I'm like, shut up. I don't need the health, but I want to kill you just to get you to shut up.
And on top of that, we'll get to this in a bit, but whenever the game slows down and all the voices of them are slowed too.
Yeah.
Or when you feed during a slowdown and it's just super slow-mo.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess, yeah, we should just jump into that now.
Yeah, I mean, so there's 2 camera modes in the game. One where you're zoomed out, one where you're zoomed in. Whenever you're zoomed in, the game runs better, but you can't really see shit. You can't see what you're doing. You can't see pretty much anything outside of a tiny little square around you. And when you zoom out, it feels like the game should feel, but there's just constant frame drops.
I got to the point where I had to restart the game and everything because I thought maybe something happened and it messed up. But I didn't hit the frame drops until about, I want to say the second, you have your first starting dungeon, and then I think it was the second dungeon where it just went to shit.
I can't remember exactly when it happened, but once it starts, it's just the whole rest of your playthrough.
I'm pretty sure there's one dungeon part I didn't even do because it was impossible for me to do with all the lag. Luckily, you told me about if you zoom in, it fixes it. So I'd kind of stay zoomed out until I noticed it slowing down. And I'd zoom in, get the part done I needed to, and then zoom back out if I needed to get a bigger view of what I was doing.
It's kind of crazy because I would actually use the slowdown to dodge some arrows and stuff sometimes. Because like you could be a little more precise.
I didn't even think about doing that. That's a good idea.
Well, what I said about the zooming in, getting rid of the slowdown, I didn't know that until after I was done playing already. So I just suffered the whole time.
There was parts even when zoomed in, it still slowed down. It was rare, more rare than it was when you were zoomed out. But yeah, there was a huge problem. I don't know if it's too many characters on screen, too many animations happening at once, but something was destroying that game on the frame rate.
I definitely noticed it the most whenever there was a ton of people on the screen, enemies or NPCs, whatever. I don't know if it still did it from all of like the little traps and things like that, but I would imagine it probably still did.
Yeah, even in the one area where you do that blood sacrifice and you had that green circle in the center of the level, even that was destroying my frame rate. So even to run up to the throne to do the blood sacrifice, it was such a drag to walk up there. And then obviously when you get into town with all the houses and the guards and the civilians, that brought it down again. So it's just, if you didn't tell me about the zoom in thing, I would have given up a lot earlier because I was so annoyed.
I just kind of accepted it. There is a PC version of this game and it looks like it runs pretty smooth. And I think that if we were playing the PC version of this game, it probably would have impacted the rating a good bit just because like the constant loading and the slowdown are two big parts of this game that make you want to quit playing.
Yeah. Honestly, the loading screens brought me out of the game so much. Like I was getting into it, story. But then you go into a house and now you got to wait. Then you're in the house. Oh, there's nothing in for me. Go outside. Now you got to wait. I timed it. It's 6.5 seconds every single time.
What the fuck? I didn't do that.
I wanted to know the number.
Even pausing it, dude. Like that was the one that got me the most. Anytime I paused it or anytime I looked at the map.
It just seemed like there was something in the game that needed to be more optimized and it just wasn't. So every time you had to look at the world map or look at the quick map, which I love the quick map feature.
Also, the world map is also really good. It lets you know where to go.
It lets you know where to go. I love the little heat map thing. So it kind of is like you were in this area, but you only looked at this section. You didn't go over in this section. I love that because one of my favorite games, Star Ocean, they do that too, where every area you're in, you start at 0% map and your goal is to get to 100% map. That means you saw every corner of the map. And this kind of did the same thing where it let you see where you didn't explore so that you could go back and explore that later.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw in the menu, it says there's like 100 secrets.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if you found any.
I'm actually about to just load up my game right now and look because I definitely found some. But I think the secrets are literally just like you found chests or something. You know what I mean? It's not like it's like a secret wall. Like I was hoping there was going to be hidden walls or something.
I don't know if I found any more, but the one time I did check, it said I found a secret. And I have no clue what that secret was or what it gave me or what I did. I just know at some point I found a secret.
Yeah, I don't know what they are. I think I want to say I found like 2 or 3 or something. It wasn't anything significant.
Yeah, I think if I go back, I would be able to see if that number went up or not.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's literally just like maybe you explore, you find like a hidden room that doesn't seem hidden or something like that.
Which is a shame. I wish it was more special than that.
Yeah, this is the kind of game too where you could do like literal like illusory walls or like, when you get the mace, you can break down all those little rocks that are blocking you now. Like if you could go back, because another thing I wrote down is this game is sort of like a light Metroidvania.
Yeah, I can kind of see that a little bit.
Where you get an ability, you can go back and kind of explore the area you were already in. One of the abilities I didn't unlock, which I think is really cool, is you can turn into a mist.
That's a good segue too. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 transformations you have. The mist one allows you to go through doors and walls, which would have been really useful when I was playing this game.
Yeah, I mean, I had the bat, obviously. I had the dog or wolf or whatever. and I had the human form.
Yeah, so I love the fact that they have all these different things you can do. The bat is your fast travel, which is amazing. I love that. The wolf allows you to jump onto ledges and you can go really, really fast. And then your human is your stealth. So you can be in a town full of guards, turn on your human form, and they don't bother you. And then there's one last one called Beguile, I think is how you pronounce it. And you're pretty much just the human form, but you stay a vampire. I don't know what the benefit to that is. I guess it doesn't use as much magic.
You could probably like still feed, but stay in a human form.
Maybe, yeah, I guess. But the fact that they have all these different transformations to do different things, it kind of reminds me of Zelda, where you get this new item, like the hook shot, and now you can go do these other things.
Yeah, I mean, I want to get into each one of those transformations, but one of my biggest positives of this game is it is constantly giving you stuff. There's constantly a new idea, a new item, a new transformation, whatever. Every seemingly 10 to 15 minutes, you're getting something new, and it's usually cool.
The amount of stuff this game has is incredible. You have different transformations, different armors, different weapons, different spells, and different objects. So much of all that. So the fact of having to do, you can do these different combinations of, oh, I'm going to use this armor with this weapon and stuff. It's so much effort into this game, and you can tell.
You know, there's a lot of games we played so far where you specifically are like, I feel like I'm playing this for no reason because I'm not unlocking anything. I'm not getting better. And I feel like this is the exact thing that every game should do.
Exactly. There was a time when I was in one of the taverns and there was 3 chests behind the bar. And I'm like, how do I get back there? I cannot figure it out. And so I'm like, whatever. I run around, I'm doing other things. And then it hit me. I'm like, wait, I have a wolf form. I can just jump over the bar. So I ran all the way back there, jumped over the bar, and then I was able to get the chests. And so I love how there's these tiny little puzzles where it's like, remember, you have this thing, you can use it. And again, nothing seems complicated, but it is nice little touches here and there.
So I will say with the wolf form, I did find the jumping to feel bad because I could never figure out exactly when I was allowed to use it.
So it's one of those things where with the wolf form, you can jump, but it's very specific of when you have to jump. It's not like you can just hit the jump button and you jump. I noticed in some of the dungeons where you have to jump over spikes, I pretty much had to position myself right in front of the spikes pointing up. And then it let me use the jump button to go over them. And when you're going up the cliffs, you have to stand in a very specific spot and then you can jump up there. I think the jumping could have been a little bit more streamlined.
Yeah, I feel like you can't jump while you're moving is what I've noticed, really.
It just seems like there's specific areas on the map that are like allow for the jumping ability to be used.
Yeah, I mean, you can see like on the ledge, like what kind of ledge it is. You can know if you can jump high enough or not. But really, I mean, you would just get to a spot and you're like, okay, I don't know where to go here. You look at it, you're like, okay, I have to jump up there.
Yeah. And that's where the quick map comes in handy. I don't know how often you use that.
I used it a lot because I'm like just getting a lay of the land before I do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love how it doesn't take the night or day into effect. If you do the quick map, it automatically makes it nighttime so you can see everything that's going on.
That's true. It is really nice.
The one thing I didn't like about it is the camera moved so fast whenever you're navigating the quick map. I don't know if that was a problem for you.
It didn't really bother me. Most of the time I would just like open it up, take a look around, and then that would be it.
Yeah, it allows you to see what paths are able to be taken.
I don't know if this happened to you either, but there was one time where I found a teleport spot for the bat. I'm just kind of walking around. I don't know where to go. I don't understand what's going on here. I tried the dog or the wolf. I keep saying the dog. I tried the wolf and I couldn't jump anywhere. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe if I just travel back here, it'll put me somewhere else. And then it did. And I'm like, I don't understand why this is allowed.
That's very interesting. Yeah, because whenever they first show you the bat quick travel thing, I did that too. And it only allowed me to go where I was already standing. So I just went there and I didn't transport me anywhere else. Now I'm confused on where you were stuck at. I want to see that in your footage.
It was towards the end, I want to say. So it might have been after where you were at, but I don't know. Other than that, though, I really only used the bat to like go back to the pillars after I finished what I was doing.
Yeah, there was one time. So after you beat the first boss and you end up at the pillars, I was starting to run back to where I needed to go because I needed to go to a new area for the second boss, I would assume. And after doing some running, and I'm like, I'm lost. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. And just like with the wolf thing, it clicked in my head. Oh, I can do fast travel. I forgot about that. And so I fast traveled up to where the first boss was. And it brought me to the area with the pillars, and I was able to knock them down and continue on my way.
I did the exact same thing.
Like, they give you so much stuff that you kind of forget about all the things you have.
Yeah, I mean, you're constantly wondering, like, should I use this new thing I just got, or is it one of the other things?
It's one of those exact situations was when you're leading into the first boss, and you have to do those 4 different puzzle rooms. So the one with the light hallway thing where you had to trigger a light to then walk into the light and then trigger more lights.
So I don't know if you did this. I used the spell to turn on all the light.
Yes, so did I.
And then I'm like, oh, okay, what the fuck is this? Because you look at the quick map and it zooms out and just all the same thing. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah, I did the exact same thing. And I saw up in the top right corner was the teleporter. I'm like, cool, I just got to get to the top right corner. It kept teleporting me back to the start and I could not figure out why. And it wasn't until that spell wore off that I saw what was happening.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I started getting teleported a bunch of times, I'm like, okay, I wasn't supposed to do this.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that it doesn't make sense. If they give you a spell to let you turn on the lights, I feel like they should have known that any player would see how dark it is, and then you would turn on the lights in that area. So it seems like a little bit of a flaw in design on their part, but not really by much.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, you know, we figured it out pretty quickly. It's not like it was like a big deal, you know what I mean?
Yeah, if the spell was a permanent spell, or at least you had to turn it off, I don't think I ever would have figured it out. Luckily, it turned itself off, and then I could see. So I am glad that there's like a cooldown or a timer that each spell runs on. How about the magic system in general with how much magic you have? Did you ever find that to be a problem?
Once I started using it a lot, I definitely ran out pretty quick. I pretty much never used the human form because it would just drain the magic so fast.
Yeah. Well, there's one section where you have to use the human form. I don't know if you did it, where you're kind of leading out of the one town and you have to turn on the one switch to go out of the gate, kind of leading into the first boss.
I mean, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I would assume I would have had to have done it, right?
Unless you sat there and fought every single guard, which if you did, I applaud you because that was very difficult.
No, I mean, as soon as I got it, I definitely used it a whole bunch. But then, like, after that, I really never used it again because I didn't feel like it was worth it to, like, waste my stuff, you know?
Yeah, that was the one part where I almost stopped playing because the guards were so strong that I couldn't get through them. And I was burning through so many heal items to fight through that. Again, wasn't using my magic all that much, so I probably should have done that. But I took a break last night, went to bed. And when I woke up, I was like, oh yeah, I have the stealth mode. I could just use that. So I went back into the game this morning, turned on stealth mode. But it's kind of one of those things where you turn on the effect and you have to run because you're running out of time. So I like ran over, hit the switch. And as I was leaving the one house, it wore off and I switched back to vampire mode. So then every guy was fighting me. So I just ran. I passed every single person and just ran to where I needed to get out of the way.
Yeah, I did find myself towards the end a lot more just like running past enemies too, because there's no XP or leveling up or anything. So like really there's no point in fighting every single enemy.
Is there not though? Because there is that one, what is it called? Like the status of your guy?
Status. I thought that was like if you're poisoned or something.
Oh, maybe. Honestly, I never figured it out and I never really looked at it. So I don't really know.
No, I mean, I completely forgot about it until you just mentioned it, honestly.
Did you notice? We should also talk about this. So the way you get your magic back is you also have to feed as well.
Is that true?
Yeah. How are you regenerating your magic?
I thought you just got it back by killing enemies.
No. Well, maybe.
I'm almost positive just by doing damage to enemies, you get it back. Because like specifically on that second boss fight, you know, I would use that spell that would shield me. And then when it would run out, I would just attack him over and over again until I got my magic back.
Oh, okay. Then I didn't know that part. But there's 4 different types of feeding. So you have red, like, so when you're hitting an enemy when they're about to die, they squirt blood out of their body.
Oh, you're talking about the blue guys.
Yeah. So if the blood is red, that heals you. And if it's blue, then that's your magic you get back.
I barely ever did that ever.
Oh, okay. So I found this one. Did you ever notice, or did you ever go back to an area after you killed a lot of civilians?
No.
So there's a thing where if you go into the house and there's like 5 people, you kill all 5 people. If you leave the house and come back to the house, the 5 people are now ghosts. They're still in human form, but you can see through them now. If you kill them again in ghost form, they don't give you red blood, they give you blue blood after that.
I did notice that, but not there, like in a dungeon, I think, somewhere where I would go back.
That makes sense. And then some enemies have black and green blood, and those are bad. You don't want to get those ones.
I didn't encounter that really at all, I don't think.
I've noticed with the black and green blood that the enemies kind of died in one hit. So I never even had an opportunity to maybe drink the blood. So I'm thinking maybe down the road, there are enemies that take more hits. And the whole idea is you might accidentally hit a circle to feed when you were intending to do a normal guy and you accidentally got the guy with like black blood.
That's true. The only thing I can remember having green blood was the skeletons. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. There's the skeletons and then there's like those slugs.
Yes. Like little slimes.
Yeah. And then there's like the bigger round slimes that had green blood too. And those things, which was funny, like they try to just run at you. And if they hit you, they blow up, which I thought was really cool.
What did you think of the music?
I loved it. I thought it went so well with what the game was.
So I like the music, but I just don't think that there's enough of it or even close to enough of it.
For me, it went with the theme of like, if you're in the dungeon, you kind of get the dungeon sound.
I don't know. I just kind of felt like I was hearing the same group of songs the entire game. And the fact that it doesn't loop correctly just is a personal thing for me.
Yes. I noticed the looping thing. That threw me off so much.
I was like, is something going to happen now? And it's like, no, the song just starts over.
Yeah. I do love how I think it's only specific to the dungeons where there's whispering in only one side of the speakers.
I did notice that it's very creepy and intentional.
Yes. It was very creepy and also made me like on edge going through some of the dungeons, even though it's not a horror game. It still made me feel uneasy sometimes.
I mean, while it's not a horror game, it's definitely a horror themed game though.
And then you had the girl screaming sometimes or like a girl whispering to you and saying something. So there's so many elements. But then, like you said, it does repeat a lot. So
even then, like you're still hearing these constant voice samples the entire time too. So like that's kind of just taking your attention away from the music regardless. Just like, you know, every time you're attacking, he's screaming, then enemies dying, then the people tied up screaming. It's like just this constant just barrage of fucking noise at you all the time.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you ever encountered this, but when the narration is going on, did you ever try to do something else while that was happening?
No, you have to wait. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to see in the footage, there's times where it looks like our game is frozen. That's not the case. It's just that the narration was going. We tried to do something else. It wasn't allowed. So our game was technically frozen until the narration was done. And then we can move on to the next thing.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really find that too annoying just because like the game was clearly trying to not let you like leave that screen pretty much or just start fighting and trigger the other voice samples. And then you wouldn't be able to tell what's going on.
I definitely get it. But at the same time, it kind of sucked that it did prevent you from moving at all. Because I thought something broke the first time it happened to me. And I couldn't figure out why the game wasn't continuing.
No, I mean, it's not really a negative for me, but I definitely can see how it's annoying for sure.
What about your views on the camera?
We kind of already touched on it earlier, but when it's zoomed out, it's fine. I don't have any problems with it. It's just the slowdown is just so annoying. I can't even imagine any scenario where I would play the whole game zoomed in, though. I don't care how much slowdown there is. I would never.
Because there's a lot of things you have to specifically see a part where you have to hit a button with a projectile. And if you're zoomed in, you can't really see that very well. So it allows you to see that button that you're supposed to hit. I noticed when it was zoomed in, the camera was constantly trying to like center on you whenever you were walking anywhere. Yes,
I noticed that in the very beginning.
It kind of made me sick, honestly.
Yeah, but you get motion sick from all kinds of fucking games, though.
This is true.
I never forget when we were playing Doom. You were like, we have to turn off this motion blur. I was like, what do you even mean?
You were playing it and I had to put my head down because I'm like, I'm about to throw up. This is making me so sick. A little behind the scenes, I was editing Einhander. And when I saw the final boss, I had to text you like, I don't know how you did this. I almost threw up again watching the end boss fight in Einhander because of how much movement there was in the background. So I think even if I made it that far playing the game, I never would have been able to beat the game because I would have been so sick.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. But yeah, that stuff has never really bothered me. It's mostly just VR that would get me. But I feel like that's at least, pretty common.
Yeah, it's a problem. I hate it.
But yeah, we pretty much went through all my notes. Did you find any of the fountains of blood?
Yes. I found 2 of them. How about you?
I found 2 of them as well. But those are permanent stat ups.
Yes. It says somewhere in the manual, it's like, 3 fountains will give you this, and there's 1 specific fountain that will give you this. It never gives you specifically where those things are. It just kind of tells you that there are these things in the game and to look for them.
So as far as the manual goes, I only looked at it a little bit in the beginning just to kind of get the controls. I was going to read through more of it, but I'm like, you know what? I'll just play the game. And I found everything pretty naturally. So like, I didn't know what they did when I found them, but once it gave me the stat up, I went back and tried to use it again, and it took like half my health. If you try and use it again, it goes, you're being greedy or something.
Interesting. Yeah, I never really thought to try it again. It was one of those things I just found. I'm like, oh, cool. I need a boost up, and I grabbed it. I was like, all right, now I can move on. I never had to go back and never thought to try it again. What about the day-night cycle?
I know that the game says that you're stronger at night, but I didn't really notice a difference.
No, I never had a problem in the daytime. But I do love how there is a cycle, and it adds a little bit of strategy. I'm sure later on in the game, because this is a very long game, I think it'll be a strategy to only go outside at night for certain enemies.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could just wait.
But I do love how there's also weather, and that plays a role in everything too.
Okay, I wanted to bring this up. I never encountered rain a single time after they show you it in the very beginning of the game.
I think I did one other time just randomly, and then there's snow that hurts you too.
I don't think I saw either of those.
Weird. I thought that was scripted. Yeah, I got snow once and rain twice.
The only time I ever saw rain was the very beginning when it shows you what rain does.
Which I was scared about that at first. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I was like, this is going to be annoying the whole game, isn't it?
Well, it's because like I go outside and it's like, oh, the rain, it hurts me. So I'm like, all right, I'll just go back inside. And then I got lost for a while because I'm like, well, there's nothing left in here. I didn't realize that you were just supposed to run through the rain.
I'm not going to lie to you. It could have rained or snowed and I didn't even notice, but like it wasn't enough for me to, pay attention to it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And when we say that it damages you, it's not by much. It's so small of an amount that it just is more of an inconvenience hearing the guy make the hurt sound every so often.
Yes.
But it never actually hurts you to the point where you're like, oh, I'm probably going to die from this. It's just, you're fine.
All right. Well, do you have anything else? Because we can start getting into these reviews. We've gotten pretty deep into this game.
We did, yeah. The only thing that we didn't really talk about, but we both didn't see that much, was all the different types of armor and weapons.
I did get the bone armor.
Oh, that's cool.
What it does is the lower level skeletons just won't attack you at all. But the thing is like, it was kind of dumb because like I got it and then I finished the dungeon I was in. And then after that, I didn't really see that many skeletons, so it didn't matter.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
At the very end, I got another weapon after the mace. It's 2 axes. And, you can swing really fast, but you can't use any spells.
Yeah, there's specific 2-handed weapons that you can't use any spells on, which is, again, a very cool feature. The amount of combination stuff you can do in this game is incredible. So did you read about the other types of armor and weapons?
I didn't.
So there's one weapon called, I think it's the very final weapon you can get. It's called the Soul Reaver. Every time you swing, it uses magic, but it's a one-hit kill. So there's another armor called the Wraith Armor, and any damage that you take will be split between your magic and blood. So you can get hit and also use the Soul Reaver. So it's kind of like those two are working together to always be convenient. And then there's like the Flesh Armor that it's an auto feed. So when they get stunned, it's an auto feed and you don't have to worry about it.
Oh, I would totally use that.
It would have been so handy. It got to the point, I don't know about you, where I was counting the hits and I knew how many hits each enemy took to get stunned.
Yes, especially like when you're in a dungeon and you keep seeing the same enemies over and over again, you're like, all right, 3 hits for this guy.
Yeah, it kind of gets burnt into your brain. So you just, it takes this many hits and then I can feed. Or if you use the mace, it never kills the guy. It will only stun them, which I thought was a really, really nice touch.
Yeah, about the mace, I didn't realize that it only stunned them. I mean, you can still kill them with it eventually, but the one boss I was talking about, the second boss, I went into it the first time with the mace, and I couldn't figure out why I wasn't doing a ton of damage. So that's when I was like, all right, I'm going to reload this and try the sword, and then it was like way easier.
But yeah, aside from that, I guess just improvements. Is there anything other than what we already talked about that you would like to see?
Not really. If the technical problems are fixed on the PC version of this game, then I really have nothing bad to say at all, to be honest with you.
Not at all. The only 2 I could think of that are very small, a magic vial instead of that symbol that represents your magic. I would have loved to see that more.
I agree. Sometimes it can be a little confusing to know exactly how much you have left or like how much like a certain thing is going to use.
Which I completely forgot to bring this up. I love how that small little detail that if you drink too much blood, it overfills the vial.
I didn't even notice that. That's sick.
Yeah, it's such a small detail, and I loved whenever I did that. It just let you know, hey, you're maxed out and you can't take any more blood.
I must have done it constantly then.
Probably. But the second improvement, I would have loved to see kind of like a fatality type move.
Like a finisher.
Kinda, yeah. Like we already have a ton of gore and so much gruesomeness in this game. Just go all in on that. Just you have these mutilations where like you can literally blow people up and like shrapnel of body parts go about.
I love that, by the way.
Yeah, there's the implosion of people, which I never did. Probably should have done that just to see what that looked like. But you have all that, just go all in, make one more thing that was a special type of finisher that just made it look so much more gory.
It would have been cool if like whenever you stun them to feed, you could do like some sort of attack like that instead. Even if it was just like chopping their head off or something shit like that, that'd be really cool.
Exactly. Didn't have to be much, just something small, but it would have been really cool if they added that.
So it seems like we're pretty high on this game.
We are, yes. Which I'm surprised. I kind of thought you weren't going to be.
So yeah, I mean, before we get to the end of this, and before we get to the reviews, I just want to say, like, I genuinely like this game. And if it wasn't for the actual technical issues, I would have played a lot more of it. I just was getting so sick of the slowdown all the time. That was the big killer for me. But I had a good time, and I was looking forward to playing more of it.
I agree, which I'll go more into detail with my review. But what about these other reviews?
Yeah, this is another one where it's not really too exciting. It got really good reviews, you know? I'm trying to pick different review sites instead of just using IGN and GameSpot all the time.
I was actually going to bring that up. I'm like, wow, we are always using this. I just have to keep the same logo in my library. That's fine.
Well, the reason I do that is because a lot of these websites, you know, they're not up anymore. Or, you know, the reviews that are being cited are just in a magazine or just something that you can't pull from anymore.
Oh, okay.
I'm also trying to get better about just not pulling the blurbs at the end of the review for this segment, because I feel like a lot of the time I'm just giving you like the last sentence of their review, and I'm trying to pick more interesting parts of it. So it's not just me like, oh, here's the last paragraph of the review, you know?
Yeah, I get that, but I think as long as they are just related to what we're talking about, I don't think it's really a big deal.
Well, this one is directly related to what we were just talking about. All Game, which I've never heard of, gave it 3.5 stars out of 5, and they had this to say as one of the only negatives with the game. So what's the problem with this game? The slowdown. Sometimes games slow down when things get hectic on the screen, and we've come to accept this. But in Blood Omen, the game slows down too often, even if there's only 1 or 2 things on the screen. And most of the time, it's bad enough to severely hamper the playability and the enjoyment of this game. Could not agree more with that one.
Yes. Whenever it was getting to all the loading screens going, I'm like, this can't be an all the time thing, right? And I was wrong.
Obviously, that's just limitations of the time, right? But at the same time, other games don't have this much stuff like this, and I would just recommend playing the PC version. I mean, there's not really much more to say about it, you know?
Exactly.
And that's going to make our scores complicated.
Yes.
But GameSpot gave it a 7.1, and they said, capturing the spirit of Zelda and Beyond Oasis, Legacy of Kain is a great hack-and-slash role-playing game. With lots of challenging and fun gameplay, sucking the blood out of hapless prisoners and townspeople is pure PlayStation pleasure.
Which, yeah, it goes back to what we talked about at the top of the show, is this, it has that feel and vibe of Zelda, but with the graphics and kind of interface of Diablo, which is nice. I've never heard of Beyond Oasis, though.
Beyond Oasis is another game that's kind of like Zelda-ish. I think it was for the Sega Genesis.
Oh, okay. I never heard of that.
But yeah, I mean, we've been gushing about this game for about, over an hour now. So let's just get into this.
Yeah, what's the verdict, Jimmy?
Okay. I started out, I wrote down 6 to 7. That's kind of where I was at. Then I changed it to 6. And now, after this whole talk, I'm going to give this game a 7.5.
Even with the slowdown?
Even with the slowdown. If it didn't have those things, I would give this game at least an 8.
And you said you would keep playing this game, right?
Definitely.
So I love that you say that. I was playing the game again this morning just to get caught up and play some more. I didn't want to stop playing. I knew it was coming up time for recording. I didn't want to stop playing. Even with this, like I said, the slowdowns took me out of the game. And I'm like, oh, I got to sit through this again. But when you don't have those slowdowns, it feels so nice. It was so fun. If we didn't have to do this recording, I'd probably still be playing that game right now. And I probably wouldn't have stopped. I truly think I'm going to go back and play this game some more. Like, I want to finish this game. I want to see what the ending is because it was so much fun. I will say, just add like, if we didn't have the slowdowns, if we didn't have those small issues like that, I honestly think this would be like a 9 in my books if we didn't have that.
I was going to say at least an 8.5 for me if it didn't have those problems.
I originally put in my notes it's an 8 or 9. But because of the slowdowns and because of it kind of pulls you out of the moment a little bit, I still think it sets at a very strong 7.5 as well. It was so much fun.
I genuinely didn't, like when we first started playing it, I didn't think I was going to like it this much.
Me neither. With like the camera jittering around, I was like, oh, here we go. This is going to be a janky game. But just hours and hours into it, and I want to go back and keep playing.
I can't believe what's about to happen right now. I just brought up the list. This is number 1 now.
Yeah. To be fair, if we didn't have Kyle, it would have been tied for number 1 right now. Einhander was a 7.33, but between our two scores, it would have been a 7.5.
And I take it you like this game more than Einhander.
Just slightly. I mean, obviously, I gave it just a slightly higher score. Einhander is the second game I still want to go back and keep playing. Even though it was difficult, I still want to keep playing it because it was such a fun game.
I agree.
And I think that's a big deal with getting such a high score like this, the replayability. If it feels like a chore to go back and want to play it again, obviously that's why they're at the bottom of the list. But with these, they were just, I don't know, they sucked me in. I want to keep playing them. I
agree. There's no other game on this list besides like maybe Tekken that I would go back to. And even then with Tekken, I'd probably just play one of the sequels instead. I just think this is a great game. I have like, other than the few negatives we had, it's just, you can't deny it,
No. I really wish there wasn't that slowdown. Like if I were to get this on PC, I would have the time of my life.
I agree.
It's crazy that we agreed on this one. I thought you were going to go very low on it.
No, the way you were talking right before you said 7.5, I thought you were going to say 8 or 8.5.
No. That if there wasn't a slowdown, then yes. But unfortunately, that slowdown does hurt this game a lot.
I am anxiously awaiting to play the sequel now, for sure.
Me too. I hope that they did a good job with it. But to be fair, I will say that we've talked about before that you and I both love story. So this has the story element. I think if you pull out the story and you also have that fun gameplay to go with it, it's going to be high in our books all the time.
I completely agree. Like, I just think every aspect of this game just nails it. I think the music could be better, but that's just a personal thing. Everything else, I really don't have any complaints.
Not at all. Not at all. We're always big on music. Obviously, we're music people, so we're going to critique that a lot. But you can't put it down just because it wasn't so much. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Thank you so much for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this, Please remember to like and subscribe as well as give us a rating on podcast services. We'll see you next week.